Yep.
So. And action. Hello, I'm Jason Liosatos. This is Global Peace Radio and TV. Today I've got the great pleasure of interviewing Dave Starbuck. Welcome, Dave.
Hello there.
Welcome to the show. And Dave is from many things. I know he'll be telling us about it now. He's from awakeradio.co.uk. We're here at the Beacon Studios with Paradigm Shift TV, which is on Sky Channel 191 and 192 daily. Also, Paradigm Shift is going to be doing this evening, actually, the Totnes Truth, which is every Wednesday. One Wednesday a month, first Wednesday of the month. And this on November the 17th and 18th, they're at the Totnes Civic Hall, and it's going to be a fantastic special thing with the cancer. Many speakers there. It's going to be a great day, a two-day thing. Dave, welcome to the show. That's why you're here. I could talk about this. Dave's come on to talk to us about the many things that you do today, and we're delighted to have you on. So, where would you like to start, Dave?
Oh, I don't quite know. Some of the things that I kind of get involved in. I used to be very heavily into the free man movement. Just lately, I've been more into alternative health.
Sorry, Dave, was there something that forced you towards that ill health or anything like that initially?
Not really. It was it was one of those things that when you start searching and start researching, what you find is that you go off in all sorts of different directions. And I think I was researching for the looking for stuff on the Federal Reserve,
right?
And I came across a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. By G. Edward Griffin.
Oh, great guy, yeah.
Great guy.
I really enjoy listening to him. Very balanced perspective, very nice man, yeah.
Exactly. So he wrote the definitive book on the Federal Reserve. And it was written so clearly and concisely that I thought, well, let me look for something else that he might have done, because I just loved his writing. And I came across a book called World Without Cancer that he wrote.
Fantastic.
And that just opened up that whole sort of area for me.
Brilliant. I think it was Kissinger that you reminded now. Henry Kissinger said if people realised how the money system worked, there'd be riots in the streets. And I believe that's where we are now.
Absolutely.
And also the drug company and everything else as well. So with the money system, Dave, give us your take on that. Where do you see us going with the money system? Obviously it's collapsing. We all know, well, not everyone knows it, but most people know that the paper money system is collapsing. There's no doubt about that. People are buying gold frantically, which is very heavy to carry when you're running.
Yeah.
I'm only joking. But give us your take on the money side of things.
Well, my view on an alternative to the money system is no money at all. I believe we've been programmed to believe that we do need money. We don't. I don't think we need money at all. The example I give is I call Thousand Man Island. If you, me, and the next 999 people were all trapped on a desert island, we'd all sort of work together to make sure that we all survived. So if I was good at fishing, for instance, I'd be out there fishing all day, and I'd bring my fish in and lay it out and say, well, I've got my fish, everyone else can have the rest.
You don't need to kill me, I'll give you some.
Yeah. And the point is, though, if somebody from the other side of the island that I've not met came by, I wouldn't have any worry about him taking one of the fish, because he's on the island too, and he's no doubt doing something that helps us all.
And there should be abundance,
Yes, and in that way, abundance is, it's all around us.
And apparently there was abundance. I was reading about Africa, because I lived there. Apparently when the people went there, they were so abundant, they were storing stuff and everything, so they were self-sufficient. And you reminded me now when you said about, no money. I was delighted to hear you say that, because it's a hard thing for me to say to people, a world without money, because it's like, how can you have a world without money? People are so programmed and conditioned that we need money. I think it was on Max Kaiser, one of the guys there said the acronym TINA, T-I-N-A, which means there is no alternative. One of the money men said there is no alternative. Well, not in our current conscious state there's not, because we can't see it. No. But I'm delighted to hear you say that, because a world without money is possible. There's no doubt about it.
And it's
we
the
might
key.
be forced to be.
Well, we are, but it'll be dangerous because they're waiting in the wings with their new solution that they're currently manufacturing the problem for.
That's a good point.
So we're going to have a very small or narrow window in which to get something else going. Before they impose their new system on us.
Yeah, that's true. It's quite daunting times and exciting times, I feel, at the same time. I've often said to people that we'd better start putting things in place, because sometimes we only change things when we have to, don't we? So it's a good idea to start putting a base camp in, a net, if you like, underneath this system that we've got, which is killing us. I'm sure we'd all agree. So we don't have to do it when it's often people only do things when they have to. Where do you talk a little bit about that, about a network underneath what we're doing now, and how do you think we're going to bring that in? And
well, I've got different views than most people, actually. I think it starts here.
Yeah, it does.
And with the individual. It's a process of getting responsibility back for your life. And the problem with most people is that they've given away responsibility for every aspect of their lives to experts and governments and all sorts of things. And essentially they're being kept as children. So the process is starting to take back that responsibility. Take responsibility for your health. Don't leave it to the medical industry, which is an industry, isn't about making you better or anything. It's about making money, like all other industries. So, and I always say, if you start acting like a sheep, then the wolves are going to come and prey on you, and that's what we've got. As soon as you start giving your responsibility away, people will come in and prey on you.
Well put, Dave. I think it's just wonderful what you're saying. It resonates with what I feel as well, obviously. And I know what a lot of people obviously feel who are watching this, so they wouldn't probably be watching it. But it's a double thing. Like you said, we're giving our will away. You see people with Obama, Romney, whoever wins, who cares? It's going to be the same thing, isn't it? Hooray,
Theatre for the masses.
Yeah. I think in one sense we've given it away, and in another sense we've been robbed. I gave an analogy the other day. It's like a spider's web is placed for us. Let's say the student loans or something. So it traps you early in your life, doesn't it? And I said the spider is less cruel than the people who run this world, because at least the spider eats you in 2 weeks. But these people swathe you and then feed off your energy for life.
Yeah.
Where do you see about people taking their power back now? How do you feel about that? Obviously, I suppose you said we don't vote, start your own systems, put something in place. With personal empowerment, and like you said, it's got to be a consciousness transformation, which is happening. Can you give some people some advice about how to bring that back towards themselves rather than giving it away all the time? Or we've become used to giving it away, and it's become a habit, hasn't it?
Well, the process of giving it away is again, it's entrainment, and one of the biggest things that is used against us is the television. It's this whole idea of media that we consume. But it's not just something to entertain us and consume, to use our time up. It's there to program us into one way of thinking, and that one way of thinking is that we need help from experts. We're not good enough on our own. We're helpless. We're small. Sorry. There's that noise because my phone is in my pocket and it's probably. So do you want me to
turn it off? Till then, probably. You're going to chop that bit.
Okay, I forgot all about that. Sorry.
And it's good sometimes, on the radio show. Often it's like there's someone comes bursting in or something. That's quite good.
Really?
it means we're humans.
Is it like SWAT?
Yeah.
Comes in?
Well, not yet. Not yet. No. But back to people taking their power back, and I see them there with Romney on their T-shirts, and it breaks my heart. It's like, help us. And don't get me wrong, I want to ask you about the Occupy movement as well. The Occupy movement was fantastic because there's people taking their power back in one sense. In another sense, I thought, oh my goodness, they're saying we're the 99%. In other words, we're the helpless ones. It's a strange twist, isn't it? And almost like by saying to them, you could write a good book on them. we're helpless. It's like Oliver Twist, isn't it? Where do you see us going? Coming together, growing food. Food is the biggest dependency we've got, obviously.
Yeah.
Food, shelter.
Well, again, it's first of all turning off the television, biggest mind control device ever, and then examining your life and seeing where you're dependent. Most of us are dependent because we depend on the medical industry, so start educating yourself, and then start taking responsibility for your health. Realizing, the biggest thing there is the food that we eat. It's literally killing us.
It literally is killing us.
Very slowly. So we don't sort of see the cause and effect thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's slowly killing us. Just like in the old days when they would show the old films with the wicked stepmother poisoning the daughter. She wouldn't just like tip a load of poison in the food and give it to the daughter. She dies. Yeah. What happened is she'd put a little drop every now and again, so the kid gets sicker and sicker, and the doctors misdiagnose it, and eventually she dies. That's what's happening to us.
That's a good point. I like that.
So we take responsibility for our food supply, for our health. For every aspect of our lives, that's the thing. So yes, you can start educating yourself about alternative health, educating yourself about the food we eat, and then making the next step is to grow your own food, and maybe even start sharing that food amongst your community, and encouraging others. So then eventually you start not only rebuilding your community, which is another big thing that we need to start doing, but you then start diversifying your own food supply.
Great point, Dave. Thank you very much. I was speaking to someone actually last night about that. He was saying that we've got to come together as human beings. There's xenophobia, there's fear, there's we don't trust each other anymore.
All intentionally.
And I think what I talk a lot about is taking, not only getting our power back, but psychologically becoming sane again as a species. Individually, you said earlier on, I like that, when you said about each person's got to change individually, and that, like an orchestra, will make the whole orchestra change, like an ant's nest, where do you feel with that? I mean, obviously, we in one sense, like we said earlier, we disempower ourselves by handing over our power, because ultimately, who doesn't want to be spoon-fed? I would love to sit back if there was some ethical being and say, well, please spoon feed me. Oh, lovely, And in another sense, it's foolish to do that,
Yeah.
I suppose it's like finding a middle way, isn't it? About be careful who you trust, sort of thing, isn't it?
Well, it's always going to end up the same way. As soon as I said, as soon as you act like a sheep, the wolves are going to come. So, what all these systems that are now enslaving us, they all started out as a benefit, and there's in America there's a phrase they use called bait and switch. I don't know if you.
Sounds
okay.
Cringy thing. Oh, it sounds really powerful.
Well,
go on, tell us.
It's a marketing thing, and we know it as.
I was in sales, so go on, I'll understand it.
Yeah, well, a con artist does this as well. They bait you with this great idea, this great thing, and you fall in love with it. And with a bit of sleight of hand, they give you it all packaged up. You take it home, you open it up, and it's a brick, or it's something else that you didn't want. So that's what's been played on us. We're given a benefit where they bring out something and say, look, this will spoon feed you. You won't have to feed yourself ever again. Okay, and you buy that, and before long you realise that, or maybe you don't, that the thing is now in control of you, and it's not what you bought in the first place.
Good point. And then almost like it's too late.
It's too late.
Not too late, but you know what I'm trying to say.
It is too late.
The lattice is built. It's like I think I call it the Frankenstein's monster analogy. It's like almost like it's like you build a Frankenstein's monster, or it's built for you, and the system now is a Frankenstein's monster. I think it's the economy, particularly, it's going out of control, killing us and killing the planet, down back to money again. And almost like what worries me is they're trying to breathe life, they're trying to resuscitate the dead corpse of the system. Now, I heard someone the other day talking about, I'd like to ask you about this, what you think. So I think it was a fantastic guy, he's on Max Kaiser a lot, Reggie Middleton. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, he was talking about actually maybe we could reset the whole system, yeah? Which is a fantastic idea, and start again. But what, start again with the same paradigm that's going to kill us again and again and again, because it's based on fear and short-term greed. And you brushed on it just now. People make ethical compromises, don't they? There's people who are spoon-feeding you. They won't, because they're not psychologically stable. You know, what do you think about that? You know, how do you feel with that? That we trust them, and then they change and they become ethically unsound, without vision and wisdom for the future. That's the most frightening thing you could possibly think of, isn't it?
Right.
People without vision and wisdom running the world, for goodness sake.
Yeah, what we've got is the corporate structure placed over every aspect of our lives. So that corporate hierarchy that we're used to, officers and executive officers and chief executive, all that sort of structure, that breeds psychopathic behaviour.
Well put.
And it's a structure that allows psychopaths to rise and ethical people to fall and drop off altogether.
Lovely.
So that's essentially what's happening here. I mean, you can't avoid it. It's one of those things that is inherent in the system. So we cannot go back to any kind of monetary system, because, for one thing, that monetary system supports the corporate structure, and it's the corporations that are destroying this planet. And we're sort of cooperating because, in this system, we can't live without the money that they provide us.
Yeah.
So we've
been rendered virtually helpless.
Yes, and we're destroying the planet and destroying ourselves, willingly or begrudgingly, perhaps.
Begrudgingly, I like that.
Because we can't see a way of stopping it. It's a runaway train, and we're forced to keep stoking the fire, because otherwise we'll die. We don't realise that the train is heading over a cliff anyway, but that's the thing. A lot of people fool themselves that the train isn't heading over a cliff.
Yeah, it's too frightening. It's beautifully put, Dave. I really appreciate your words. They're really well put. I'm delighted to have met you as well, because it's, I talk about, I nervously talk about the fact that we've got to completely have no money, otherwise it's going to kill us again and again. And it's those, I like the way you put it now. It's beautiful about the ethical compromises sort of thing. People compromise ethically. Often the further up the political ladder they go. Take someone like Tony Blair. I'm not saying he started off a really nice guy. I hope he did. Let's say he did. Yeah. Then the more he went up the political ladder, you've got to make certain ethical compromises, or you don't go up. That's why I wouldn't see you in a position of that political power, because you wouldn't be prepared to make those ethical compromises to get there. Oh, okay, we'll kill a few people there. Okay, never mind. And that's the thing. The money system forces people to compromise ethically.
Well, let's go back to Tony Blair there. Yeah. He's not like us, okay? First of all, he's been brought up as the ruling class.
Very good point. Like Cameron, for instance.
Like Cameron, like all of them. They go to different schools than us.
Eton and things like that.
They're taught differently to the rest of us. We are schooled, right? Think where that word comes from. School. School of fish. We're schooled in the same way.
Good point.
We're taught to be obedient workers. We're the worker caste. The schools, the elite schools, that cost a lot of money. See, money as a control mechanism. So only the elite can go to those schools. They put their kids in those schools. They get trained to be the ruling class.
Trained to be special.
Well, not special as such, but
better than most people.
An example is in comprehensive schools, you're not taught to do public speaking.
Right.
You're actually discouraged to do public speaking. You know, they traumatize you in school by getting you to stand up in front of a class and read and then talk about, and it's a terrifying experience. In these elite schools, the emphasis is on public speaking, on rhetoric, on those things that we're actively discouraged from doing. So you get a ruling class who can outmaneuver you and you know, get their point across and almost seduce you with words.
Seduction, fantastic.
Yes.
Very well put.
So Tony Blair grew up in that environment. He was groomed to be where he is now. As you say, in order to move up the ladder, you have to compromise your ethics. But as we're seeing with the whole Jimmy Savile thing, you have to go a lot further than that. You have to prove that you know,
you'll do anything.
You'll do anything. So you get compromised very early on. Otherwise, you don't move up.
So you can be controlled.
So you can be controlled. If you suddenly get a conscience as Prime Minister, and you know, you've still got a certain amount of power, or when I say power, ability to derail the powers that be's track. What am I trying to say? Derail their plans and such.
Someone like Kennedy.
Yes, like Kennedy, exactly.
Whose conscience suddenly, well, he probably had a conscience anyway, but Kennedy wasn't comfortable with what he was doing and being told to do.
Exactly.
And what happened to Kennedy? Well, we all know, you know. That's not a conspiracy theory. I don't think so, folks. There's enough proof now, you know. So yeah,
and you know, obviously he was. They tried to mess around with all the affairs and things that he had and that, but I think his popularity was too great for that.
Yeah.
But yes, so that's why we're seeing these, you know, paedophile charges being rolled out, because in order to get to those positions, you have to compromise yourself, so you can be removed at a moment's notice.
Yeah. It's incredible, Dave. Thanks for talking about that. It's very, very interesting, and that ethical compromise, for me, is one of the biggest. It sounds too simple, but I think ethical compromises are one of our biggest threats as humanity. Add that into the poison chalice of money and government. Government, well, automatically creates ethical compromises. But you see it running straight through with the drones now. You know, the drones they're bombing people. You know, okay, you can't see it. You know, it's on a screen, and I think, you know, it's taught to us really young. You know. I was in sales, and I was making ethical compromises in sales. Sometimes I knew there was someone sat there who couldn't afford what I was offering, but I compromised ethically. I would never do it now, and it wasn't terrible, but I compromised ethically because I had bills to pay. And I think it interweaves its way, and we've become used to ethical compromises. It's a frightening prospect, almost like it's a frightening prospect. It's destroying humanity. Let's be dead honest about it. And if there's two things which are destroying humanity: money, and obviously the human mind, which you mentioned in the beginning, didn't you? Sort the mind out, or it'll always collapse. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Oh gosh, I've lost the point now, because there was a great point you made, and I thought, I've got to address that.
Which bit was it? Tell me.
It's gone straight out.
Was it still on a thing of ethical compromises? Yeah?
Yes.
About putting money in the poison chalice with government money and
yeah. It's gone. It's a really good point as well.
It'll come back in a minute.
It'll come back. It's probably what you said about sorting the mind out. Mine isn't sorted out.
Yeah. No, it is, or you wouldn't be sat here, believe me. Your mind's well sorted out. If everyone was sorted out like you have, we'd have a better world for sure.
Well, it's just some of it's come back. Yeah.
Someone said about remembering, it's like remembering dreams. A lovely lady who's helped me a lot the other day, she said, if you can just grab the tail of it, then you'll pull it.
That's it, yeah, work backwards, that's how I do it. One of the biggest problems with money is because it's like a game of musical chairs. You know, there's not enough money out there to satisfy all the debts. That's the problem with the whole system. It sets up this competition system. So it is like musical chairs. You know, with the chairs are being removed all the time, and we're dancing, and the music stops. You've got to make sure that you're on a chair. Yeah?
I shouldn't laugh because it's a tragicomedy. It's tragic, but it is a tragicomedy. It's almost comical when you look at it. I know people are dying. Sorry, go on. Dave.
People are committing suicide
Jumping out
over
of
this.
balconies in Greece.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Sorry,
because it's all fake. But yeah, it's you know, we're in a competition-based society, and that drives most of the problems of this whole society.
Drives people mad.
Yeah, and crime. Most crime wouldn't exist if we weren't in this competition-based society.
I absolutely agree. Who would want to steal? I mean, some people might just get such a thrill out of stealing something, but generally it's because they haven't got enough. So, you know, and people have said to me, oh, well, you know, what would happen then? You're just going to give everyone enough? What would people do? We'd be sat around, you know, popping grapes in our mouths. And no, it wouldn't be like that, because we always need to do something, don't we?
We are
creative species.
Exactly it. We're creative beings.
But our creativity has been, the way I put it across is, it's been choked off, like our metamorphic glands have been strangled by the fear and stress to make money. I said to someone yesterday, I was talking on my doorstep to someone, and he was on about this very subject, and great guys I speak to, and he said, we both talked about the fact that in one sense you've got an agitation and fear about making money, which ties off your creativity, keeps you in fear. So that's bad enough. But then when you get the money, through that fear and agitation, then you're still in fear because you know it's going to go.
Yeah.
What a terrible, terrible scenario that's playing out on this planet. You know? A terrible scenario, you know. And it is going to collapse, it's obvious, you know. But if we're not ready, would you say, if we've got to be ready, we've got to put other places, how would you see it playing out? If I say we've got to turn our backs, instead of being like Oliver Twist with our balls, please sir, give me more, surely we've got to just say, we're going to create systems without you.
Exactly. Turn away from the system.
Talk about that.
Turn away from the system. And that's the ultimate goal of taking back your own responsibility. Because we don't need to riot. We don't need to take to the streets with banners and stuff. We just say, you know what, we know how to do this ourselves, so we're just going to do stuff over here by ourselves. You know, you can do what you want. Go ahead. We're just going to do our own thing. Problem is, as with all tyrannical systems, they cannot tolerate anybody not being part of their system, so they'll come after us.
That is what worries me, Dave. Setting up your own systems, they'll be coming and prodding you and saying, you can't do this, you can't do. I gave an analogy, I think, on one of the shows I did, which I think is a good one. It's a bit of a strange analogy. I had a dog called Sally. She's gone now, bless her. Sally, I know, loved us. Not for my ego, but she did. We loved her. We had a great relationship. Ultimately, I knew Sally wanted to be free, Dave. Yeah. So she was always wanting to go out. My analogy with the way where we are with as human beings and as the controlling elite, if you like, is if I took my dog Sally and opened the door and said, Sal, you can go. So they might say, well, you're free to go. Yeah? Go, do what you want, start your own systems. If I said to Sally, Sally, you're free to go. Go on, off you go, freedom. She'd look at me and think, yeah, I want to be free. She'd look back at the house, okay, it's quite cosy. I'm not getting much food. I would have given her what she wanted, but so she's caught between freedom and the fear that she'd be able to look after herself. Yeah? I think that's where we are as human beings. We can be free, but we're frightened that we can't because we've been so used to being slaves. Yeah?
Yep. In one of my presentations, I've got a picture of a horse tied to one of those plastic chairs, and the horse is standing there meekly and just tied to a plastic chair. That says it all, you know. The horse could, if it realised,
fantastic,
it does realise in some respects, it realises that it could just run off, but it's been tied to it, so it stays there.
Someone told me a story about an elephant in India. Who was it? I think it was Gerald Salenti. He's a fantastic guy I interviewed the other day. He was saying about elephants in India or something, and we said, they can tie an elephant to a post, and it pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls till his leg's bleeding, and then eventually you can take the chain off. You know, you've probably heard the story, and it just stands there. You know, I gave the analogy about elephants again. As if it's like an elephant in a circus doing tricks. You know, and they give you a bit of food, and then you carry on doing tricks, but the elephant starts looking out the window and seeing, well, maybe I could be free. You know, but he's thinking, well, they give me a bit of food anyway, and then ultimately, if the circus collapses, then you've got to do something yourself anyway. I worry about people, Dave. I worry that if someone goes to Morrison's, and only a couple of years ago I think this would seem bizarre. You could go to Morrison's or another supermarket and there's no food, or it's closed. What would people do? You'd be fighting for scraps of like dandelion leaves and that.
Well, that's what's happening now in America and post
I forgot.
post Stanley.
How bad is it? I don't know.
Well, from reports I've seen, it's there's supposedly martial law in Long Island, which is an island by New York.
Wow.
It was like 3 miles tailbacks going into the island, and the police were only letting residents in.
Wow.
There was a video of people dumpster diving,
Right.
to get food.
I heard people, ladies being prostitutes for petrol. No.
I haven't heard that.
Yesterday, I heard someone talking about that, and that is, I think, it's a strange thing, Dave. I think we've come to a point where now we are at a fork in the road. It's an old analogy, I know, but I think people don't need much proof now that they're slaves, firstly, that they're subservient, that they're really almost helpless, yeah, in a sense, you know. And I think sometimes it has to get to that point where the system starts crumbling for people actually to believe that and do something else. So in one sense, the system is ripping us to shreds. In another sense, it's like a chloroform, smelling salts.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, surely it can't be this bad. What are we going to do? Well, now you've got to act. You've got to do something.
Well, one of the problems is that we've been subjected to psychological manipulation. This is the thing I was supposed to remember before, actually.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
back.
it's back.
I was bothered about that. That was bothering me because I was the one that jumped in and usurped it. So watch, I don't do it again. Quick.
Okay. Yes, you were saying about when you were in sales.
Oh,
and,
I still feel guilty about it now. But
compromising yourself.
Yeah, I was.
Well, there were a couple of psychological studies done in the 60s, and this is why they do these studies, okay? One was called the Stanley Milgram experiment, and the other was the Stanford prison experiment, okay? Are you aware of those ones?
Never heard of it, no.
The Stanley Milgram experiment, you probably recognise it when I mention it. It's there was a teacher and a learner. Yeah, the learner would be in a different room, and he'd be wired up to this device, okay? And the teacher would be in a different room with an authority figure, a guy in a white coat, you know, with a clipboard marking his, his responses. So in front of the teacher would be a machine with lots of different switches on it, and each switch represents a different voltage.
I want to remember something here. Go on.
Higher and higher and higher. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the teacher would give a couple of words that the learner had to respond correctly to, and if he got it wrong, the teacher would have to give that guy a shock.
Oh, I remember now.
And as the shocks,
reminded me.
And halfway up this machine, the shocks become fatal.
Oh gosh.
And the experiment basically showed that in the presence of an authority figure, people are willing to deliver fatal shocks to kill people.
I've got to write something else. Go on.
Just from the influence of an authority figure.
Wow.
So that was one experiment that is being used on us daily. Yeah. Another one is the Stanford prison experiment. This was where a psychologist converted the basement of the college to a prison, and they advertised for students to play prison guards and prisoners, and they were chosen randomly to be whatever. And yeah, they pretended, they acted like they were in prison. And after mere hours, people fell into their roles, and the prison guards became brutal and evil, you know, and the prisoners, And I said there was no difference between them. They were just randomly chosen, to be whatever. The prisoners became meek and mild and compliant, and they had to stop the experiment after a few days because it was getting violent and brutal, and and people getting psychologically scarred because of it. And they all knew it was an experiment.
Yeah, yeah.
But they fell into that role. So between the Stanley Milgram experiment and the Stanford prison experiment, that's why you're getting people like in the police doing things that they wouldn't normally do because they're being manipulated by an authority figure, their boss, and the Stanford prison experiment where when you get a group of people empowered in a uniform and told they can do whatever they want, they go further and further and further and press, and they get carried along by the crowd as such.
Fantastic.
So these things are being used on us.
Thank you. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you. Go on. Sorry.
No.
Thank you for that. That's just it's lovely for people to get a broad spectrum, of what's going on. And I thought when you were saying that, above the police are the people that were telling the police what to do. The police are abusing that, obviously. And when you look at positions of massive power, my gosh, I mean, it's horror stories, isn't it? I look into it and I wish I didn't have to. I don't want to be up at night listening to this stuff. I'd rather be smelling flowers, which I do as well. But you reminded me also about the biggest threat to humanity is our own minds. It sounds crazy, but you say, what's the biggest threat to humanity as a species? The biggest threat of all, humans' own minds. My God, what a statement! You reminded me of a great old film with Walter Pidgeon, I think it was called. What was it now? It was. I forgot what it was called. I think it was called Forbidden Planet. Oh, yeah. It was about a race of beings who became so developed, but they had forgotten about their monsters of id. Those things that can turn them nasty. Those things that can make them compromise ethically. And although they were, as we supposedly are as human beings, at the peak of our intelligence, my goodness, I'd say it's the opposite.
Yeah, I know.
My goodness, we're the dunces of the universe, So they went mad because of it, And I just made a note here. I think talking about police, there's something placed in every human being, back to ethics and morals, and its pristine form, that thing that's in us, which is morals and ethics. We wouldn't even need policemen. Think of that.
I know.
I mean, what if people would say you're mad? Of course we need policemen. People always do things wrong. Not if they're actually acting properly in their minds. But again, it's back to the money thing. It changes people. I'd like to talk a little bit about health. Yeah.
Okay.
You're a healthy guy. I know. You're working a lot with your health. The cancer conference is coming up, which I'm delighted to say. With PSTV, and that is on the 17th and 18th in Totnes Civic Hall. Fantastic lineup of speakers. You're going to be there, obviously. Yep. Like you are on tonight, on Wednesday, in the Battle House. But can you cover a little bit about health? It's obviously dulling our consciousness. It's so many things, isn't it? Where do you start with it? With cancer, obviously, the people who are making ethical compromise. A quick analogy, not an analogy. The people who are making bombs, Boeing, and these people, drones. There's sales teams in these weapons manufacturers. It's like a sales room for cars, isn't it?
Yeah.
People come there. Oh, this bomb will kill more people than that bomb. You should buy ours.
Yeah.
This drone can destroy more people. This is more precise. You can kill 3 people. So it's very similar with the drug companies. So in other words, the people that are making the money, like I was in sales when I was selling cars, I'd sit with someone and I'd sign them up, and I knew they couldn't really afford it, but they really wanted it or needed it. So where are we going with that, Dave? The drugs companies, they're making slow ethical compromises. It's like that slight nudge, isn't it? It gets worse and worse and worse, and before you know it, it's a big ethical compromise, yeah? And the arms companies, very similar.
Well, no, I've got to say, it's not the company itself, because the company is hell-bent on the definition of a corporation. Well, it's not the definition, I suppose. It's the aim of a corporation is to make money, okay, despite human or environmental costs.
I got shivers at my spine.
Doesn't matter what corporation it is, whether they're a pharmaceutical or they're they're Tesco's. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they're supposedly doing. Their only goal is to make money more money for their shareholders.
Whether it's aspartame, chemotherapy,
doesn't matter. Okay. They'll do it. Yeah, right. It's like drugs companies or chemical companies will dump toxic waste in a river because it makes good business sense. It costs billions to get rid of it ethically, but their fine's only going to be a couple of million if they get caught. So
right, like the bankers.
It makes good business sense from their point of view to dump the stuff in the river and hope they don't get caught.
Right.
If they do, it's only a couple of million.
Yeah.
But they've made billions in the process.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten where.
Yeah, well, I was
the topic was.
I was just saying about about the situation with cancer. Let's take you. I know you'll come back to that, but let's say you took the head of a corporation. Well, I'll give you an example. Well, what was his name? Not Donald. Was it Donald Rumsfeld? Was it the guy who brought back aspartame?
Yeah.
Okay. I think he got a £4 million bonus. I read about it. I'm sure that's true. How would he have felt? Let's say someone had said to him, "Look, Donald. Okay, you've got a bad reputation. Okay, you've got a reputation of being a bit of a bad guy here, and you've made ethical compromises. But I want to sit you down and talk to you, Donald Rumsfeld. If you bring back aspartame, you are going to kill a lot of people. Okay." How bad has someone got to be, or how twisted, or how brutally conditioned, or how greedy, or how much fear not to have money, or how brutal and insane has someone got to be? Not Donald Rumsfeld, anyone at the head of a corporation. If you think someone said to the head of Calvin Klein, GlaxoSmithKline, you're going to kill thousands of millions of people, are you still going to go ahead with this decision? I suppose they'd blame someone else. How deep does this insanity go, Dave?
Right, well, do you want to answer that?
I'll answer that. One moment, sorry. This just proves it's a live show.
I'm only joking, actually.
No, I quite like it when this happens because it's lovely. It proves that we are human beings. I'll bring it back in a minute. Proves we're human beings. It happens on the show a lot, and that's good. I mean, we've got this thing. Everything's got to be so clinical. Everything, you know what I mean. Everything's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
Perfectionism equals paralysis. So we don't want to be paralysed. We want to be flowing. Sorry, Dave. You carry on.
Oh, now I've forgotten it again. Yes.
I was on about the head of a corporation.
Oh, right. Yes.
How they've got children? They've got grandchildren that this is going to affect.
Right, what you've got to understand is that, again, this corporate structure means that you can compartmentalise everything. So that, you might be at work making widgets, and your widget looks fairly innocuous, but it goes together with the guy in the next cubicle who's making a different kind of widget.
Beautifully put.
And next minute, when you put the whole thing together, you've got an atomic bomb, or you've got... or whatever.
Fantastic.
But you just know that you're working on that thing, and
It's a very great analogy.
So somebody like Donald Rumsfeld, he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. So the policy that he follows, as well, obviously his shareholders are all members of this Council on Foreign Relations as well. He's just told, you're going to bring in aspartame. Bring this stuff in, get this done. And he goes, okay. Takes it to his executive people and say, make sure this gets in there.
In other words, or else.
Or else. He's just the CEO of the corporation, just like a president is just the CEO of that country, as it were.
I mean, just to go on, sorry. Yeah.
And if he doesn't do the job that he's asked to do, he's out, and somebody else who's more ruthless will come in.
I don't know if this is a true story, but find out for yourself, really, anyone who's listening to this. When what was it, MF Global crashed, yeah? Gerald Celente had a lot of money there in holdings for his gold, suddenly gone, yeah? JP Morgan, yeah? They owed JP Morgan apparently the money. Now someone in a good authority said that, I think it was Jamie Dimon or was it Tim Geithner, one of the two, I can't remember, or someone else, they said, get us the money or we'll blow your brains out, yeah? Now, I don't know if that's true or not, yeah? But that is what I'm really worried about. It's become so brutal and so... it's brutal, it's terrible. That in a nutshell, Dave, what would you say to people now? Where do we go from here? And I don't always ask you for solutions because it's not fair to say, what's the solution, Dave? Because when people say, what's the solution to me, Mr. Smart Guy, I write about this stuff. I say to them, well, someone else is good at solutions, yeah? So when I asked Patrick Henniger the other day about it, he said, and it was a great point he made. Patrick Henderson said, when someone asks me about solutions, I say to them, I'm not a fireman. Sorry, I am a fireman. I'm not the solutions man. Okay, so I'm not putting you on a big spot. But give us a brief overview. Where do we go, Dave? You know, where do we start?
Well, it just so happens I did write a solution down.
Oh, did you? That's good.
Yeah, I started writing a book. So,
what's the book called? Can you give us?
Well, it was a book really for my own benefit because while I was waking up, I needed something to focus my mind on to assimilate all this information I was getting. So I wrote a book. I never published it, but I suppose I could at some point. But
I think you've got it now. Everyone knows about it.
But yeah,
Dave's book is soon to be out in print, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe for another 5 years or so. Yeah, but the solution I came up with was essentially redefining the idea of a house to what I call a life support environment, so that it grows its own food. It recycles water and waste, powers itself, the whole lot. So it's
and that technology is available now. Yeah.
Absolutely available. We've been living in houses that haven't changed for 1,000 years. You know, the details might have changed, but the basic idea hasn't changed. So if you've got this self-sufficient house that produces resources, you could also any surplus resources can be automatically shared with other houses. So you build a community of these houses that share resources, so that the more people in the system, the more there is to go around.
Oh, fantastic!
And instead of the other way around, and essentially you build a kind of internet-based sort of model, rather than the one we're in now, where it's top-down, where resources are generated centrally. And it feeds down to everybody. It's like the mainframe computer and all the dumb terminals underneath. When the mainframe goes down, everything's gone. With this internet type scenario, every house is like a server, and it serves its own. It's got its own power. It's got everything. Okay, if something catastrophic
happens to your neighbour's power, you help them.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody else is still unaffected, and they can feed help into that area. But you know, it's not that something happens to the generating plant and everybody's helpless.
Fantastic.
So it's just basically going back to small communities and realizing that you're not only independent, but you're interdependent as well.
And sometimes what seems to be going backwards is actually going forwards.
Yes.
It's that thing, isn't it?
Well, that's how life works. Cycles. We always end up back at the same place. But it's whether you end up at a higher level or not.
We were talking about that earlier on, weren't we? Yeah, that's a very powerful metaphor, and the truth, not just a metaphor. And it can be like we've got a. It's almost like a great mentor of mine said, once you've realised how much it hurts hitting your head against the wall, it's a bit silly to carry on doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you've got someone holding your head there hitting against the wall, then sometimes there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
But you can step aside. And it's a fantastic place. I think we're in a great, exciting place as humanity, a very daunting place. But I think it's taken a long time for us to think, no, we can do this on our own,
And we can, we absolutely can.
And on that note, I think we can say that we've got to, And, absolutely. And Dave, listen, thank you so much for coming in. And just want to say again that you'll be speaking on the 17th and 18th in the Totnes Truth, the cancer thing. I'm sure you'll be elaborating more on these points then about cancer and how ideally don't hit your head against the wall in the first place. Yeah. Why get cancer if you don't have to get cancer? It's crazy, And I think there's still a law from the 1930s, am I right, that says you can't cure cancer with anything else other than chemotherapy, drugs, and radiotherapy. I'm sure there's a law somewhere.
I believe it's the Cancer Act, 1939 or something.
Yeah.
And it forbids you from talking about cancer cure.
Even talking about it. Yeah. So in other words, if I can't even, well I will, but if I can't stand up and say, listen, I've been eating donuts for the last 10 years, I've got cancer, now I'm going to eat fresh green juices and actually it cured me. I can't say that apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I know I just did, but I haven't had cancer, so I can say
and
that.
And I can't say that urine therapy and eating alkaline food and hemp oil and bicarbonate soda cures cancer. I can't say that. I cannot say that those things cure cancer.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, maybe one day we can say it.
Yeah, maybe one day. We can live in hope, can't we?
Dave, thanks very much for coming in on Global Peace Radio and TV. It's been a delight to have you, and thanks for your wisdom. Thank you for coming in.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Come again, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching today. We're at PSTV in the Beacon Studios. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been a great interview. Thank you so much, Dave. I really enjoy speaking to you. We need more people like Dave. Perhaps we can clone him, but I'm not sure you're allowed to do that.
Works, yeah.
But it's great to speak to you, and we'll look forward to listening to Dave on the 17th and 18th. And thank you all for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much, and stay healthy, and keep remember that you've got the power, not anyone else. So take it back. Thank you very much. Hey! How did we do? It felt